Welcome to the second episode of Photomyne Talks. I'm so glad you could join me and our special guest, Cathy Panebianco, today. Cathy is a photographer and more recently a published author of a book that's coming out soon. So without further ado, here's Cathy. Cathy, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Matthew. I'm excited to be here. You know, I love your app, so I'm happy to be a part of this.
Well, we're so excited that you could be here. Cathy was first introduced to Photomyne and to our community over about a year ago after we stumbled into an article about a project she was working on with slides. Of course, one of our apps is for scanning slides, so we were really curious to see how someone could take this older method of printing photographed moments and turning them into something so beautiful and current. But before we get into the project, I want to start with you, Cathy, and hear a little bit more about how you got into photography in the first place.
So I'm pretty much self-taught photographer. I went to college for economics, of all things, business. And when I got out of college, I started taking some courses in the evening at my local community college. And I started in film, black and white, took black and white darkroom courses. And I remember the first time I saw a print actually come up in the developer, you know, that magic of it just appearing. It was just the coolest thing. And I was hooked after that. So I'm pretty much self-taught. I started probably about 30 years ago now. I have a full-time job, so I sort of do it on the side. Took a lot of workshops. There's a lot of places you can take great workshops in the US and in Europe too, but mainly photographic workshops and the Santa Fe workshops. Went to a lot of workshops and just sort of figured it out myself, and I love it. It's a passion for me, and that's kind of how I got started. You know, took a lot of classes and workshops myself.
So before you got to No Memory Is Ever Alone, had you worked on other projects in the past, that sort of thing, something that led into this, something that you're proud of, something you look back fondly on that kind of, got you on this path?
So I started more like a lot of photographers do, just taking sort of one-off images, where just images that I see that I loved and that type of thing that, meant something to me, but maybe just one or two here or there, showed those in galleries and things. And then probably about, maybe like it was longer than that, probably about 10 years ago, I went to a workshop in Maine with Trader Scott. It was an animal photography workshop. And I love animals too. I do a lot with my local humane society. I photograph their adoptable dogs so they can get adopted easier. So I'm a big animal lover too. So, and my dog at that point was like 13. I have a Labrador Retriever, had a Labrador Retriever named Benny. And I started taking a few photos. We walked every day. So, and then I started taking a few photos with him, just knowing it was probably close to the last year of his life, probably. And so that was my first series, really. It's called Benny Was a Good Boy. And it ended up being black and white, and it was diptychs of me and him. So it's sort of like the two of us our connection. But that was really the first real series that I did. And then I've done a few other things that have more self-portraits and that type of thing. The slide project, No Memory Is Ever Alone, that is very different. It's different than all of my projects are a little bit different. I have themes, but sometimes they're black and white, sometimes they're color. So after Benny Was a Good Boy, that's when I sort of started the slide the No Memory Is Ever Alone slide project, and went with that one. But really, it's really my second series.
So then, let's get right into No Memory Is Ever Alone. That's, as I mentioned before, how, we got connected in the first place anyways. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how it got started, what inspired it, everything that kind of helped bring this awesome project together.
Yeah. So the reason I was inspired to do it is my dad used to bring these slides out. They're from the 50s and 60s. He took them probably when he was about 15 to maybe mid to late 20s, right when he started having kids. So, and it's just of his family life. It's of all his family. And he started showing these slides at Christmas time when he was a kid, when he was a teenager, because his relatives had never seen colored slides before. That was when it was a new thing. So they thought it was like the coolest thing ever that they got to see these slides. And, half of them are of like flowers and, landscapes and stuff like that, because everybody starts with flowers and landscapes. but a lot of them were the family too. So he showed these to his relatives every Christmas. They make him break out all these slides, and they had the old projector and the screen and everything. And he just kept doing that. So even when we were kids, and even up until now, he brings these slides out, and we've seen them a zillion times. And any relatives that were around us, that came, would tell stories about the family. We put our jammies on, have our popcorn, the whole deal. It was like a whole thing, like a tradition. So, and it was important because my family moved a lot when I was a kid. My dad's job traveled us around a lot. So we didn't have a lot of family around us, but some would come at Christmas and that type of thing. But no matter where we were, it sort of made a home. It was like a tradition that was the same everywhere we went. That's why it was so important. But probably about, I don't know, I think it's 2016, I was doing an Instagram project, a 365 project, where I took a photo a day. And I was part of a group, and it was to a word or a phrase every day that you had to visualize. So mine was from where I stand that day. And I went over to my mom's house. She lived up here near me, and she had the slides out. She was like a big organizer. She liked to organize everything all the time. So I pulled out a slide. It was one of my mom in the boat when she was about 15 or 16. And I always loved that slide, so that was a cool slide anyways. And we live on a lake called Chautauqua Lake. And so I thought, I don't know. I just thought maybe there's something I could do with that slide with the lake. I don't really know. So I took it down to our lake. It was a really bright, sunny day. And when you held the slide up, it was perfect. It was like a projector. You could see right through it. And I started holding up to the water. I thought maybe I could put her in the water. I didn't know what I was doing. And all of a sudden I realized the backgrounds matched up, and I could see through to the Chautauqua Lake background on the slide background. It was like my past and my present were like completely melding together right away. It was like a cool, like, oh my gosh, that's really neat, really interesting. So I took it home, I showed my mom, and she said, well, maybe there's some other, maybe you can do some other slides. And so then I just started picking out slides that I liked, that had a story to them of some sort that I remembered, and trying to find a background that really also meant something to me around here where I live now. And so it's really how it got started. It was kind of an accident a little bit, but partially to the Instagram project.
That's so cool. Did you ever have any friends come over while you're having these big slideshow showings when you were younger? I mean, I can only imagine what it would be
Yes.
like today if someone was kind of just like, hey, come over. We got this Kodak carousel thing going on, and we're just going to flip through some photos, as opposed to just like sitting there and looking at them on a phone.
Well, and I'll tell you, like, when you say Kodak carousel projector, it was not even that good. It was from like 1940. It was one of those ones that you like flip, and you can only put two in at a time, and it would get so hot that you couldn't like leave the slides in for longer. They would just melt in there. It was like, and they had the screen that you pulled up, the old fashions. Oh my God, we still have it. It's crazy. But yeah, people, I mean, I remember being, especially like a teenager, and just rolling my eyes at the whole thing. Like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever, ever seen in my life. But, now you look back and you go, oh, that was really cool. Like, we know so many stories about our family, and, it's, like I said, we moved so much, but he made sure those slides went everywhere with us. We would lose other stuff when we moved, but not those slides. They were always there.
It's so awesome, how you're able to find this thing that was, so integral to your family and your childhood, and that you're able to take these slides and find a way not only to, have something from the present and connect it to the past, but that's also not only something that you and your family can connect to, but that other people could see it and be like, oh, I could totally understand, what this was and how it was something larger than just simply what's in front of you at the moment. Do you have any favorites from the collection?
I love the one. There's a couple that I like. I mean, obviously, they're all really personal to me, but I love the one of my dad in the boat, and he's driving the boat, like the old outboard motor, and and there's a lake behind him. I just think that one seems to be very popular with a lot of people because I just think it's the joy on his face. I mean, he probably was 16 or 17 years old in that photo. He loves being on the lake. He loves the water. That's a lake in Canada we've gone to for since I was a kid, and my mom's family went for like 100 years. So it's just another tradition in our family. But I think it's the expression on his face that's just, my dad's not like a huge smiler. Like he's not like huge emotional kind of guy, but very rarely you get a picture of him smiling. And like, I just love that photo. In fact, I have it behind me on the wall. That's the one I have on my wall. I love that one. I love the one that's my dad's family at Sunday dinner, and that's in my dining room, just because of the stories for that one. Because that one always had a million stories. Because there's always an uncle that was like super drunk at every holiday, saying inappropriate stuff, that made my grandmother insane, and there was always, the little brother making stupid faces, and, just like all those stories you have from the holidays. And, even though that was like they had Sunday dinner every week, which some people still do, some people don't. But even like the holidays, you always had that sort of cast of characters that you're like, everybody's either embarrassed by, or, so that one I like too, just because of this, for me, it's the stories that it reminds me of. And I like the one of me, and the one that's of the little girl in the pool is actually me, in our pool in California. And then that's my pool in my backyard. But, I don't know. I just like that one. That one matched up really well for some reason. And it just always amazes me that could match up so well. I just think that it turned out exactly how I saw it, which didn't always happen with these things. A lot of times it didn't happen.
So are there any stories behind the photos themselves, whether behind the slide itself or maybe the moment when you took the actual photo, something interesting, something with an interesting past to it, like the connection between you and the pool, then lining up with the pool, with your own pool now. Something within a slide, like your dad and the boat, maybe he was on a special trip or something.
Well, I know the one slide of, this is kind of interesting, the one slide of my mom on the horse, and then it's in a field of horses. I know that picture is kind of fun because that's on their honeymoon. When they went on their honeymoon, and they never horseback ride, never did any horseback riding before that. And so my mom got this crazy, like, I think must have thought because she was a woman, she needed like a really slow horse or something. I don't know. But I guess it also like farted the entire time she was on it. And she was like so embarrassed because she was like in her early 20s, and, she's on her honeymoon, and she never rode a horse again after that. I mean, it was gross, I guess, but we all thought that was hilarious, especially as kids. So that was kind of funny. Yeah. It was bad. Neither of them ever rode a horse again after that.
What do you think makes this project so special to others? Obviously, it's special to you, but why is it that you're comfortable posting them on Instagram or on your website and then taking them and turning them into a book so that everyone can see them and see them as one collection and hold on to them, have them on their coffee table, in their office, etc.?
Yeah, I think it's because it's a universal theme, family. I think everybody, it doesn't matter what kind of family you come from. I don't know if it's like, I happen to have two parents. I don't think it matters if you're a single mother, two fathers, whatever it is. The theme of family is very similar. That love, it's almost, I didn't see it when it was a series, but I see it when it's a book now, a love story about family, and sort of celebrating that, all those different things, the weddings, the road trips, the vacations, your summer with your friends. I think it's relatable. I think that's probably, like you had said that earlier. I know when I first started showing them on Instagram and then showing them in galleries, that's what people would say, is that everybody sort of got it. I know with fine art photography, sometimes you just don't get it. It just, you look at it, you go, I know, you go in a gallery, you go, I don't understand. What is that supposed to mean? Or what is that? And I think the best photography is when people do, it's sort of a universal theme that people can get something out of it. And so I know a lot of people have said that, yes, with this one, I get it. Everybody has old photos at home, even if they don't have old slides, they have photos, and it's easy to understand. I'm just holding it up in a background and it happens to see through. And I think people just get it really easily. I think it's just super relatable, but I think probably more importantly, it's just a universal experience that everybody can kind of understand.
Yeah, completely. It's just so easy to connect with family, right? And you said it that even if it's not your family, you can find a way to connect with it, whether it's your own stories or everyone's sitting around for Sunday dinner, or you have old photos of your parents lying around that you've looked through, or maybe they're in a pool or you're in a boat. It's so cool how you can connect, just kind of bring everything together. What's the hardest part about putting this all together?
I think the hardest part was trying to figure out which slides I could use because all the slides don't work. And my dad was learning at the time, so they're not exposed all properly. So some are really underexposed and some are really overexposed. And actually, the overexposed ones work so much better because you could see through them easier. There's a lot more white. So there's some slides you just couldn't even use. I tried, it just didn't work. And the other thing was I really tried hard to connect the slide with the background. So it wasn't, both things were personal. I just didn't find anything. So it took a long time to find a background. And then because they're slides, and like I was saying with the first one, if there isn't really good light coming through them, like a projector, so you need sun a lot of times. And I live in Western New York where there's not a lot of sun a lot of times. So that was why it took me 6 years to do them all between all those things. You know what I mean? It had to be like perfect. So sometimes I would find a place and have to like go back 2 or 3 times till I could figure out when the lighting would work for it. Really.
Wow, you'd never be able to tell. It almost seems like you've lined it up once and you're just like, oh, it's perfect.
No. Hundreds and hundreds of photos that were not good, believe me, to get, 40 or 50 that were decent.
Since, it is such an older form of printing your photos, have you had any interesting reactions from anyone that wasn't familiar with the medium of slides beforehand?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some people, certainly I've taught I teach like younger kids, like in elementary and middle schools. I've taught them some photography. So I showed them and they never even seen a slide before, never even, I would bring the actual slide in and it was like, it was magic. You know what I mean? They had no idea what it was. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people, I think luckily because Kodak slides are sort of like a thing that people kind of know about. That's been pretty good. But yeah, I think younger people in particular a lot of things think it's photoshopped, first of all, which they're not. I actually held them up. But yeah, I think at first a lot of people thought Photoshop was involved because you just expect these days. But I wanted to physically put that in the, past and present together. But yeah, certainly like younger kids have no idea what a slide is, never seen it before in their life. Or a print for that matter. When I teach them, I make them print their photos so we can exhibit them. And that's the one thing I worry about is that we're going to have all these photos on here. I must have 80,000 photos on here right now. And what's going to happen 50 years from now? What are you going to look at? That's my only concern,
Well, we're fortunate that at least there's ways to organize your photos digitally now, if they were printed before. But there is something nice about flipping through a book, feeling them in your hands, especially with slides. Even though you can't see the photo exactly and have to hold on to, the light to see it, but there's a process behind it.
Yeah. And I think when I say that too, I think like with your app, it's great because you can scan these things in because I will tell you, like we had a flood in our basement and we lost a few photos. So it's important that people have them in multiple places too. You know what I mean? Like scanning them and having them somewhere. And then the ones that you really love, like maybe get them printed. You don't have to get them all printed, obviously. But I think just making sure you keep those archives. I'm working on a project right now with a gallery in Buffalo, and I'm using their archives to try to do a piece. And they have, it's like they have boxes of like the old glass negatives from like the 1900s. And they're whole families. You can tell it's a whole family. And it's like, nobody kept those. Like, whose family is this, And so that's what I hope is that people, even if they look at this, they go, well, even if I don't want to do this, maybe I'll do something with my photos and slides to make sure they stay around for another 50 years.
Well, we're fortunate that At least there's ways to organize your
Yeah.
photos digitally now, if they were printed before. But there is something nice
Yeah.
about flipping through a book, feeling them in your hands, especially with slides. Even though you can't see the photo exactly and have to hold on to, the light to see it, but there's a process behind it. Did you ever imagine that this project, starting as a simple Instagram post, would grow into what it's become? You've
No,
won awards for it. A book is on the way.
no,
Anything like that?
no, no, no. It's funny because yeah, I think especially as I get older and more into this, you really take the photos for yourself. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of like for you, you're not really taking it for other people necessarily, especially when it's like something like this. It's so personal. So you're not really thinking like, oh gosh, I hope this, does really well, or I hope I get a book. I never was thinking that. It wasn't until I finally got a series together, I got enough of them that I was like, oh, this might be something, maybe I can make some, and I'm a huge book lover. Like I love photo books. So like I collect them and stuff and I read a lot. So like that would be a bucket list to have a book, you know what I mean? Just because I love books so much. And that, yeah, no, I mean, I think when I got some positive reactions to the photos, I knew, oh, hey, this might be something people might want to look at. Because sometimes you take things and you're not sure if anybody's want to look at it or not. But it wasn't until maybe it won a couple of awards that I was like, oh, maybe I could do a book from this. Because I always did sort of as I went along, saw this as a book, I think, because I feel like it's a story. But I didn't go into it. No. I mean, I was just like, I hope I can get a few photos out of this.
I'd love to know more about the book. You said it was in pre-sale currently. So, tell us a little bit about when it's coming out and maybe get into the juicy details of what it takes to create and actually publish a book.
Yeah. So I won an award through Lens Culture, which is online photo. They do a lot of awards and do a lot of things for photographers. And it was like a Critics' Choice Award. And I got like the top 10 in that or something. So, and a couple of those people that were jurors were book publishers. And so when I got that, I sent emails to everybody and thanked them for picking my, book, my series and things. And that's when I sort of started thinking, I wonder if I could do a book, if I could get a book somehow. So I actually approached a couple of publishers, and I had two that were interested. And Yaffe Press out of Atlanta, Georgia, Jennifer Yaffe, who's fantastic. She's just the coolest lady, and she's a super advocate for photographers. She only does fine art photography books. And so she was interested, and that's sort of how I connected with her. I knew I really wanted to work with her. And she saw the same vision I did for the book, because I always saw text with it too, not just images. So that's how I got the book deal, was with her and with Yaffe Press. And I've been lucky because they've been like she works like really closely with the artist, with the design and everything. She wants to make sure it really comes out looking like the way you see it. So it's been pretty cool. The process has been really cool. It's probably been like a year. I think we started in October of 2020. And so it's in pre-sale right now at yaffepress.com. It's on its way from the Netherlands. It was printed in the Netherlands. So they're hoping in March, but with COVID, we don't know exactly because of the shipping issues in New York and everything. But hopefully spring here, it's coming, it'll be in hand. But it's been a really cool process. It's a lot of things I didn't know, of course, and had no idea how difficult it was. It takes a lot of more time than I thought, of course. But it's been really fun to work through, sequencing the images. And then I worked with a writer out of Rome, Italy. She did a feature on me on the series for La Repubblica in Rome. And I loved what she wrote. And she wrote the story to go along with the images. And it's kind of like a universal story family. It's not my family story, although when I read it, I see parts of my family in there. Just kind of like a person looking back on their life. I wanted this to look sort of like a journal, somebody kind of looking back. But I'm excited for it. I've seen the advanced copy. I'm really happy with it. It looks cool. Jennifer did, Yaffe Press did a great job with she and her staff, and the pre-sale has gone really well so far. So it's been good, but it's a process. Like, you don't realize how much there is to do a book, and mine's not even like that huge or big.
How did you settle on the name Holding Time? It seems like a bit of a departure from No Memory Is Ever Alone, the series itself. So, how did you decide this was the one?
Well, that's funny because I wanted to be No Memories Ever Alone. Like, I was like, it's going to be No Memories Ever Alone. And Jennifer Yaffe emailed me one day and she said, well, what do you think about Holding Time? And I was like, no, it's got to be No Memories Ever Alone. And like, my immediate reaction was no. And then I thought, no, I should, she knows what she's doing. I should think about this. So I thought about it, and I said something to my husband, and he was like, because he was the one who was like, no, it has to be No Memories. And he was like, oh, that's great. You know what I mean? Because it's such a play on the words. Plus, I think from a publishing aspect, it's shorter. You know what I mean? For the cover, honestly. And it does say, I mean, I'm physically holding time, but you're also holding, there's so many ways you can look at it. So it was brilliant on Jennifer's part. Can take absolutely no credit for that.
How long did it take for you to feel, like that this title was like really yours, something not written by someone else, but that Cathy wrote herself?
Oh, I think it didn't take me very long, maybe maybe a week, but it was like me just thinking it through. And then I have a friend that I trust who's helped with the editing and everything. And I showed it to her and she goes, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay. You're all right. I love it now. It just, I think when you have a series and you name it, it's like you're tied to that because you came up with it. But that's also, I think, what a publisher is supposed to do is sort of think about what's going to be best out there. And she was completely right, but I cannot take any credit for the name.
Well, it's a great name. So what's next for you? The book is out in the spring, you said, but you're working on any new series, pieces, etc., or just kind of working on promoting Holding Time and getting in as many hands as possible?
Yeah. So yes, I am the Holding Time part. I have a lot to do for that still. I still want to try to sell some more books, and again, that part of it, the whole promotion part of it, takes a lot of time. I'm always working on something because I don't like to have nothing and have to start from scratch. I don't want to start from, be like, now what? Now what do I do? I've been working on for a while a project. I went back to the animals because I said before I like the animals. And this one is black and white. And it's sort of like our connection with animals, sort of like how our souls are connected. So it's a little dreamy, it's a little black and white, and a little bit different from this project. But I sort of like going back and forth a little bit. There's something about that for me. I know a lot of people either only work in color or black and white, but I actually like both since I started in black and white. So I've been working on that for maybe a year or two, just sort of here and there, doing some images for that. So hopefully that, and I have another idea that I'm sort of floating around, but that's sort of in the beginning stages too. So I do have ideas around, but part of me needs to finish the book part of it, because that's always there. And I want to make sure that gets kind of finished and then sort of concentrate on the other stuff a little bit moving forward.
So is Holding Time the end of the No Memory Is Ever Alone project? Is this kind of the way of concluding it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's done. I think that's the hard part, is knowing when something's done, but he only had so many slides, and I've had other people ask me if I could do that with their slides, so you know what I mean? And I don't know if I could because of the personal part of it, you know what I mean? Unless they knew what they wanted. So I haven't done that, but I've also had, like my city talk about, they have like old slides and like taking the old slides and putting it where it is now kind of thing. I don't know if that would work either, but this project is done. Yeah. I think the book is sort of okay. And I would still exhibit the images, I think, but I see it as a book. Do you know what I mean? That's okay with me. Like that's the final project I see for this.
Well, Cathy, any final words, plugs, rambles you want to say? Anything, whatever you want to add before we kind of wrap it up? It's always so nice listening to you. You're so passionate, not only about photography, but family and connecting the past and the present. We said a couple times. It's just like so warm. We're recording here on a Sunday. It kind of feels
I
like
got
the
my
perfect
coffee.
weekend, snuggled on the couch with a great blanket type of conversation. Anything else you want to kind of add to this?
I don't. Well, I appreciate you guys being so interested in the project, and I'm not. I know we're not plugging your thing, but I will tell you that that your slide app is so great because I used it when I went to go up to Buffalo to take pictures of their archives. So when I came home, I would have them. Do you know what I mean? So I could look at, it's just so easy to use. It's really easy to use. And it does a really nice job. And it was funny because the archivist up there was like, "What are you using?" And I showed her and she goes, "That's amazing." I said, "You got to get it. It's really cool." So I know this is not what this is about, but you guys have it's a really great for the slides. It really works well. But I guess all I would say is that, if anybody is listening that like wants to do something with their old photos or their old slides, I mean, because you can scan them so easily now and put them into your computer, there is ways of doing cool things with your, family images, whether that's putting them into Photoshop or if you don't have Photoshop. I mean, any app on your phone now, I mean, Snapseed or any of those guys, they do such cool things where you can merge images or, you can colorize on your app. And I say to people, just use them, take them and do fun things with them because your family will love it. I mean, my family loves these. They think this is such a cool thing that, these images are like together. And it's not difficult to do, it's just not difficult to do. I mean, what I did isn't really that difficult. I just had to think of it. But I really encourage people to use their family images to do like really cool and fun things.
Well, your family's totally right. What you're doing with your photos is very cool. I really appreciate you coming on to talk with me again. It's so great to see you. We really wish you the best of luck with this book and really hope to hear more from you and about your success down the road, especially with this book.
Oh, I appreciate it. And if anybody is interested in the book, it is at yaffepress.com. So I'd love for people to read it. It's kind of like you said, like a little bit of a warm hug.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. That will do it for the second episode of Photomyne Talks. Thanks again to Cathy for joining us, and we'll see you next time.